Let me say something that might make you uncomfortable, but if you stay with me until the end, it might completely change how you see attraction, power, and relationships. Most people think they understand why younger women are drawn to older men. They think it's money, status, experience, or security. That explanation is easy, lazy, and mostly wrong. The real reason is far more unsettling because it forces you to look at how little emotional depth most people operate from today. Here's the truth no one prepares you for. Attraction is not logical, it's neurological, and most people are unknowingly repelling others not because they lack value, but because they lack inner stability. Younger women are not reacting to age. They are reacting to something much deeper, something you can feel but rarely explain. A presence that slows their mind, a calm that disarms their defenses, a sense of being seen without being chased. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Many men spend their lives trying to be wanted, liked, or chosen, without realizing that the very effort to be chosen is what makes them invisible. Meanwhile, there is a different kind of man who does not perform, does not impress, does not pursue validation, and yet quietly becomes unforgettable. If you've ever wondered why some men say very little but hold the room, why their absence is felt more than others' presence, or why certain men don't chase attention yet seem to attract it effortlessly, this is the conversation most people avoid having. Because it's not about tricks, it's about identity, it's about emotional mastery, it's about the parts of yourself you either confront or spend a lifetime running from. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not flattering, not popular, and not designed to comfort you. It's designed to wake you up. And once you see this clearly, you won't be able to unsee it. When we talk about emotional stillness, most people misunderstand it as silence, distance, or emotional coldness. That misunderstanding alone explains why so many relationships feel intense at the beginning and exhausting by the end. Emotional stillness is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of control. It is what happens when a man has felt deeply, failed deeply, and survived long enough to no longer be ruled by every internal reaction. And this quality, more than looks, charm, or even success, creates a powerful psychological pull for younger women. Attraction does not begin in the eyes, it begins in the nervous system. A younger woman may not consciously articulate this, but her body is constantly scanning for cues of safety and stability. Is this person predictable? Is this person grounded? Is this person emotionally overwhelming or emotionally containing? When an older man enters a space without urgency, without anxiety, without needing to be validated or understood immediately, something subtle but profound happens. Her system relaxes, and when the nervous system relaxes, curiosity replaces defense. Most younger men operate from emotional reactivity. They respond instantly, they explain too much, they defend themselves when not attacked, they try to fix emotions instead of understanding them. This creates noise. Emotional noise is stimulating at first, but stimulation is not the same as attraction. Stimulation excites, attraction sustains. Emotional stillness sustains because it signals that this person is not overwhelmed by intensity. He can sit with discomfort. He can allow silence without interpreting it as rejection. He can hear emotion without panicking. This is where maturity begins to show, not through words, but through restraint. An emotionally still man does not rush to fill gaps. He does not chase clarity when ambiguity is present. He understands that not everything needs immediate resolution. This alone sets him apart in a culture addicted to instant answers and emotional oversharing. When a younger woman encounters a man who does not collapse under emotional pressure, she experiences a form of relief she may never have consciously named before. Emotional stillness is also deeply connected to self-trust. A man who trusts himself does not need to control outcomes. He does not manipulate conversations. He does not escalate conflict to regain power. He allows situations to unfold because he knows he can handle whatever emerges. This internal confidence is felt, not announced, and because it is felt, it is believed. Younger women are especially sensitive to incongruence. They can sense when calm is performative versus embodied. Real stillness has weight. It slows the room down. There is also a philosophical layer to this that often goes unspoken. Emotional stillness is the acceptance of uncertainty. Many people live in resistance to not knowing. They demand reassurance, clarity, guarantees. An older man who has lived long enough understands that life offers none of these permanently, so he stops demanding them from people. This makes him emotionally spacious. And emotional spaciousness feels like freedom to the person across from him. In that space, a younger woman feels permission to be herself without managing his reactions. She does not have to walk on eggshells. She does not have to regulate his emotions for him. This is an invisible labor many women carry in relationships, especially with emotionally reactive partners. When that labor disappears, attraction grows naturally, not because she is impressed, but because she is at ease. Stillness also creates polarity. When one person is grounded, the other feels safe to express movement, emotion, curiosity, even vulnerability. Emotional polarity is not about dominance. It is about contrast. Chaos seeks calm. Uncertainty seeks grounding. A man who remains centered while emotions move around him becomes an anchor. Anchors do not chase ships. Ships return to anchors because they trust them. This is why emotional stillness cannot be faked. It comes from having confronted one's own inner chaos, from sitting with disappointment instead of escaping it, from losing something and surviving the loss, from learning that emotional storms pass faster when you do not fight them. An older man who has done this internal work carries a different energy. His presence communicates, "I have been here before, and I am still standing." That message is deeply reassuring. It's important to understand that emotional stillness does not mean emotional unavailability. In fact, it allows for deeper availability. Because when a man is not busy managing his own reactions, he has capacity to truly witness someone else. He can listen without planning a response. He can observe without judgment. He can respond instead of react. This quality makes conversations feel grounded rather than draining. Younger women often mistake emotional intensity for connection early in life. Over time, intensity exhausts them. Emotional stillness feels unfamiliar at first because it lacks drama. But unfamiliar does not mean unattractive. It means new, and new is often where growth begins. Once a woman experiences how calm feels in a relational context, chaos becomes less appealing. The B. Odie remembers safety more clearly than excitement. This is why emotional stillness has nothing to do with age and everything to do with emotional development. Age only increases attraction when it has been used to cultivate wisdom rather than ego. An older man who is still reactive is not attractive because his age amplifies immaturity instead of softening it. But when age brings perspective, patience, and emotional regulation, it becomes magnetic. And here is the deeper truth beneath all of this. Emotional stillness is not about attracting someone. It is about becoming someone who does not need to chase connection to feel whole. When you are emotionally steady, relationships become additions, not solutions. You stop demanding that others complete you, soothe you, or validate you. And paradoxically, that is when others feel drawn toward you. Because the most attractive thing in any human being is not how loudly they feel, but how deeply they can remain present without losing themselves. If there is one thing to reflect on, it is this. When you master your inner world, your outer world begins to respond differently. Calm is not passive. Calm is power under control. And once you embody that, you don't have to convince anyone of your value. Your presence does the work for you. When we speak about self-respect, most people immediately imagine confidence, charisma, or dominance. But real self-respect is far quieter than that. It does not announce itself. It does not demand our recognition. It is not performative. It is internal alignment. And when an older man carries this kind of self-respect, it creates a psychological gravity that younger women often feel before they consciously understand it. Self-respect begins with how a man treats his own time, energy, and values. A man who respects himself does not overextend to be liked. He does not sacrifice his principles to avoid discomfort. He does not stay where he is tolerated instead of valued. This is not arrogance. it is discernment, and discernment signals maturity in a way words never can. Younger men often confuse effort with worth. They believe that the more they give, explain, or accommodate, the more valuable they become. But attraction does not grow from self-abandonment. It grows from self-containment. When a man is willing to walk away from situations that do not align with his standards, he communicates something powerful without ever saying it. He communicates that his identity does not depend on external approval. Younger women are extremely perceptive to this difference. They can sense when a man's confidence is built on performance versus when it is rooted in self-knowledge. Performative confidence seeks applause. Rooted confidence does not need an audience. One is exhausting to be around, the other is grounding, and grounding is rare. Self-respect also reveals itself through boundaries, not aggressive boundaries, not defensive boundaries, but calm, consistent ones. A man with for respect does not need to threaten, withdraw dramatically, or over-explain his limits. He simply enforces them. He says no without guilt. He does not negotiate his values under emotional pressure. And when boundaries are crossed, he addresses it directly rather than storing resentment. This creates a sense of safety that is often misunderstood. Boundaries are not walls, they are structure. And structure allows intimacy to grow without chaos. When a younger woman interacts with a man who knows where he ends and where others begin, she feels clarity instead of confusion. Confusion might create excitement, but clarity creates trust. Another aspect of self-respect is consistency. A man who respects himself shows up as the same person across situations. He is not charming in private and dismissive in public. He does not mirror whoever he is speaking to in order to be accepted. He knows who he is, and he brings that self into every interaction. This consistency is deeply stabilizing. It signals integrity. Many people underestimate how exhausting inconsistency is for the nervous system. When behavior is unpredictable, the mind stays alert, scanning for danger. When behavior is consistent, the body relaxes. This is why self-respect often feels calming rather than exciting. And in the long term, calm always outlasts excitement. Self-respect also means not chasing validation. An older man who has developed self-respect does not fish for compliments or reassurance. He does not interpret silence as rejection. He does not overanalyze every interaction for hidden meaning. He understands that not everyone will choose him, and he is at peace with that. This peace is magnetic. Paradoxically, the less a man needs to be chosen, the more attractive he becomes. Neediness repels because it communicates lack. Self-respect attracts because it communicates fullness. Younger women are not looking for someone to fill a void. They are looking for someone who is already whole enough to share space with them. There is also a philosophical maturity that comes with self-respect. It is the understanding that dignity is non-negotiable. A man with self-respect does not tolerate disrespect disguised as humor. He does not excuse inconsideration because of attraction. He does not betray himself to maintain access to someone else. This inner loyalty creates outer strength. This is especially striking to younger women who may have encountered men who bend, break, or disappear when challenged. A man who remains steady in his values even when there is emotional risk stands out. Not because he is rigid, but because he is anchored. Anchored people do not drift with every emotional current. Self-respect without performance also means not trying to be impressive. An older man who respects himself does not lead with his achievements. He does not dominate conversations with stories of success. He understands that value does not need advertisement. When he speaks, it is because he has something meaningful to say, not because he wants to be seen. This restraint is often misinterpreted as mystery, but it is actually humility paired with confidence. And humility grounded in confidence is rare. It tells the person across from him, I do not need to prove myself to you, but I'm open to being known. That balance creates intrigue without manipulation. It is important to say this clearly. Self-respect is not about control. It is not about superiority. It is not about emotional distance. It is about self-ownership. A man who owns himself does not need to own others, and that lack of control is what allows genuine connection to form. Younger women feel this intuitively. They feel when a man is relating from choice rather than fear. They feel when he is present because he wants to be, not because he is afraid to be alone. This distinction changes the emotional tone of every interaction. One feels heavy, the other feels open. At its core, self-respect is the refusal to abandon yourself for attention, and when you stop abandoning yourself, you stop asking others to save you. This shifts the entire dynamic of attraction. Relationships become a meeting of two people, not a negotiation for worth. The closing truth is simple, but not easy. The way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. And when you move through the world with quiet self-respect, you do not have to demand value. You embody it. That embodiment speaks louder than charm, louder than status, louder than age. And once you understand that, you stop performing for acceptance and start living from alignment. When we talk about attention, most people assume it means availability, being reachable at all times, responding immediately, proving interest through constant engagement. But attention, when misunderstood, becomes noise, and noise does not create depth. Intentional attention does. This distinction is subtle, yet it changes the entire emotional experience of connection. Intentional attention is not about how much time you give. It is about how present you are in the time you choose to give. An older man who understands this does not scatter his focus across endless distractions. When he is with someone, he is actually with them. His phone is not competing for his awareness. His mind is not rehearsing the next line. He is listening to understand, not to reply. This quality alone separates him from most people in modern relationships. Younger women live in a world where attention is cheap but presence is rare. Messages arrive constantly, but they are often empty. Conversations happen, but they are rushed. Being heard is mistaken for being responded to. When a man offers intentional attention, it feels different in the body. It feels like being chosen rather than consumed. This is where many misunderstand attraction. Obsessive attention can feel flattering at first, but it quickly becomes overwhelming. It communicates need rather than choice. Intentional attention. Ion communicates sovereignty. It says, I am here because I want to be, not because I am afraid of losing you. That message lands deeply, especially for younger women who have experienced relationships driven by insecurity. Intentional attention also involves discernment. An older man does not give access to everyone. He is selective, not because he is guarded, but because he values depth over breadth. He understands that attention is one of the most valuable resources he has. Where he places it shapes his inner world. This selectivity makes his attention feel meaningful rather than transactional. Psychologically, the human mind responds more strongly to what is given with intention than what is given freely without thought. When attention is constant, it loses weight. When it is deliberate, it gains significance. Younger women often sense this intuitively. They feel when attention is being used to fill space versus when it is being offered as genuine engagement. Intentional attention also changes the quality of communication. An older man who gives attention with purpose asks better questions. He does not interrogate, he invites. He is curious without being intrusive. He allows silence without rushing to fill it. Silence in this context becomes a space for reflection rather than discomfort. This ability to sit in silence is underrated. Silence reveals comfort with oneself. It signals that connection does not need constant stimulation to survive. When a younger woman experiences silence that feels safe rather than awkward, she experiences a new kind of intimacy, one that does not rely on performance. Another critical element of intentional attention is timing. An older man understands when to lean in and when to step back. He does not flood a connection with intensity prematurely. He allows interest to build naturally. This pacing is not manipulation. It is respect for emotional process. Rushed intimacy often collapses under its own weight. Gradual intimacy strengthens because it allows trust to develop alongside attraction. This pacing also communicates emotional intelligence. It shows an understanding that connection is not something to be forced, but something to be cultivated. Younger women often feel this as emotional safety. They are not being pulled forward faster than they are ready. They are being met where they are. Intentional attention also means remembering what matters. An older man who is attentive in this way remembers details not to impress, but because he was genuinely listening. He recalls values, concerns, aspirations. This makes a younger woman feel seen beyond the surface. Being seen at this level is rare, and rarity amplifies value. However, it's important to clarify that intentional attention does not mean emotional availability without boundaries. An older man does not abandon his life to focus on one connection. He does not rearrange his entire world to maintain proximity. He maintains his own rhythm, responds, abilities, and sense of purpose. This balance makes his attention feel grounded rather than consuming. Philosophically, intentional attention is an act of respect. It says, I will not waste your time and I will not waste mine. It treats connection as something sacred rather than disposable. In a culture of endless options, this attitude stands out. It signals depth in a world of distraction. Younger women often respond to this by becoming more present themselves. Presence invites presence. When one person slows down, the other often follows. This creates a shared rhythm that feels intimate without being overwhelming. It allows connection to unfold organically. There is also a subtle power dynamic at play here, but not in the way people usually think. The power of intentional attention lies in choice. When attention is given freely to everyone, it loses its impact. When it is given thoughtfully, it communicates value. This is not about withholding, it is about alignment. Intentional attention also protects against burnout and resentment. When you give attention because you choose to, rather than because you feel obligated, you remain emotionally available. Obligation drains. Choice energizes. An older man who understands this stays emotionally present over time, rather than becoming withdrawn or irritable. Younger women feel this sustainability. They sense when attention is something that can last, not something that will disappear once the initial excitement fades. Sustainability is attractive because it promises continuity rather than collapse. Ultimately, intentional attention is about quality over quantity. It is about depth over frequency. It is about showing up fully when you show up and stepping away cleanly when you do not. This clarity removes confusion, and confusion is the enemy of trust. The closing reflection is this: attention shapes connection, but intention gives it meaning. When you learn to place your attention deliberately, you stop chasing closeness and start creating it. And once you understand that presence is more powerful than availability, you no longer compete for connection. You become someone others slow down for. When we speak about emotional leadership, it is important to first clear a major misconception. Emotional leadership is not dominance, control, or authority over another person. It is not about deciding for someone else how they should feel, think, or behave. In fact, the need to control emotions, yours or another's, is often a sign of emotional immaturity. True emotional leadership begins with self-mastery, not power over others. An older man who has developed emotional leadership understands that emotions are information, not emergencies. He does not panic when feelings arise. He does not rush to suppress them, fix them, or escape them. He knows that emotions pass when they are allowed to be understood. This alone creates a powerful contrast to many relational experiences younger women have had, where emotions were either ignored, dismissed, or turned into conflict. Emotional leadership shows up most clearly in moments of tension. Anyone can be charming when things are easy. Leadership is revealed when things are uncomfort. Able. When there is disagreement, misunderstanding, or emotional intensity, an emotionally mature man does not escalate. He does not weaponize silence. He does not lash out or withdraw to punish. He stays present. presence during discomfort is one of the rarest and most stabilizing traits in any relationship. Younger women are often highly emotionally attuned. They feel shifts in tone, energy, and intention quickly. When they encounter a man who can hold emotional weight without collapsing or becoming defensive, something inside them settles. This is not because he has all the answers, but because he is not afraid of the questions. Fear of emotion creates chaos. Comfort with emotion creates direction. Emotional leadership also means knowing how to guide a conversation without dominating it. An older man who embodies this skill listens first. He reflects back what he hears. He clarifies rather than assumes. He names the emotional undercurrent when needed, not to accuse, but to bring awareness. This clarity prevents small misunderstandings from becoming large ruptures. Many relationships fail not because of lack of love, but because of lack of emotional navigation. Two people feel strongly but do not know how to move through those feelings together. Emotional leadership provides a sense of orientation. It answers the unspoken question, are we safe here, even when things are hard? This safety does not come from perfection. It comes from consistency. An emotionally leading man is not flawless. He gets things wrong, but when he does, he takes responsibility. He does not deflect blame. He does not justify harm with intention. He understands that impact matters more than intent. This accountability builds trust faster than any apology spoken without understanding. Another essential element of emotional leadership is containment. This does not mean emotional suppression. It means the ability to hold space without being overwhelmed. When a younger woman expresses emotion, she is not looking to be fixed, she is looking to be received. An older man who understands this does not rush to solutions. He allows emotion to be felt without turning it into a problem that needs immediate resolution. This ability is deeply attractive because it removes pressure. Pressure to explain perfectly, pressure to calm down quickly, pressure to be reasonable before being heard. When pressure is removed, authenticity emerges, and authenticity is the foundation of real connection. Emotional leadership also involves discernment about when to engage and when to pause. An older man does not pursue resolution in the heat of emotion if clarity is not available. He understands that timing matters. Sometimes leadership is saying, let's come back to this when we are both clearer. This is not avoidance, it is wisdom. Younger women often experience emotionally reactive partners who and immediate answers, immediate reassurance, immediate closure. This creates anxiety rather than connection. Emotional leadership replaces urgency with patience, and patience communicates confidence in the relationship's ability to withstand discomfort. There is also a philosophical depth to emotional leadership that goes beyond relationships. It reflects how a man relates to life itself. A man who leads emotionally has made peace with uncertainty. He does not need to control every outcome to feel secure. This inner stability becomes a reference point for those around him. Younger women often feel drawn to this not because they want someone to lead their life, but because they want someone who can lead themselves. Self-leadership is contagious. It creates a relational environment where growth feels possible rather than threatening. Emotional leadership also means knowing when to step forward and when to step back. It means allowing others their autonomy while remaining emotionally available. This balance is difficult because it requires trust. Trust in oneself, trust in the other person, trust in the process of connection. Many people try to control because they do not trust. Leadership emerges when trust replaces fear. Importantly, emotional leadership does not seek admiration, it seeks alignment. An older man who embodies this quality does not need to be seen as strong, he simply is steady, and steadiness is felt more deeply than strength. Younger women respond to this because it creates emotional polarity without power struggle. There is movement and grounding, expression and containment. This dynamic allows both people to remain whole rather than fused or fragmented. Over time, emotional leadership creates a sense of emotional direction, not because one person decides everything, but because there is clarity about how emotions will be handled. This predictability reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety increases attraction. Attraction rooted in safety lasts longer than attraction rooted in intensity. It is also worth noting that emotional leadership cannot exist without humility. A man who believes he is always right cannot lead emotionally. Leadership requires openness to learning, to being challenged, to evolving. An older man who continues to grow rather than cling to certainty signals vitality. Growth is attractive because it suggests depth that is still unfolding. At its core, emotional leadership is the ability to remain connected without losing yourself, to remain open without becoming porous, to remain steady without becoming rigid. This balance is rare because it requires inner work most people avoid. The final reflection is this: emotional leadership is not about being in charge of others. It is about being responsible for the emotional tone you bring into a space. When you learn to carry clarity instead of chaos, presence instead of pressure, and accountability instead of defensiveness, you become E1 others feel safe evolving with. And that safety is not just attractive, it is transformative.